From the Clark Ford studio in Oxford, Mississippi, MBW Digital proudly presents the Oxford Exxon podcast.
I'd say thanks for tuning in, but why am I going to give you a round of applause for something you're supposed to do, to be frank?
And now, here are your hosts, Chase Parham.
That broadcast school has really paid off.
And Neil McCready.
I deserve to be on TV.
Welcome to this Tuesday morning edition of the Oxford Exxon podcast. Chase Parham, Neil McCready, Clark Ford studio today. We've always tried to cover whatever news comes our way over the course of the last 6, 7, 8, 9, 15 years, however long we've been doing this podcast. So we're gonna stray away from sports today. We're gonna talk about what's going on in the community, what's going on in Oxford that everyone is discussing. There's been, frankly, fear around town and everything else involved with the homicide of Ally Kostial, the 21-year-old Ole Miss student that was killed sometime Friday night into early mornings of Saturday, found Saturday morning in Harmontown. So we're gonna dive into that a little bit today. We're gonna dive into some of the responses, the media responses involved as well, and then also we're gonna talk to Therese Apel. She covers crime as well as anybody in Mississippi, frankly. She's been doing it a long time. She is the source for this, if you would like a source to follow. She's been digging around, doing all she can to uncover what happened to Ally and also give the public some sense of understanding as well. So she's going to join us here coming up. She's currently working for WLBT and Fox 40 News, so she'll be on here in a few minutes to give. She wrote an update last night. We'll see if there's anything else coming from that point. Lots of rumors, lots of things. We're here. We're going to kind of try to be careful with that part of it, but we're going to dive into what we can again on the podcast brought to you every single day by the Oxford Exxon, Highway 6 West in Oxford. To go in, get the lunch specials, the ribs, the daiquiris, and save some money at the pump in the process as well with the Speed Pass Plus app, the mobile rewards program, and more there with the Oxford Exxon. Again, coming to you from the Clark Ford studio.
We are. Clark Ford is in Amory, Mississippi. 662-257-1900 is the number. Call the number. Ask for Corey Clark. Tell Corey what Ford you're looking for, what Ford you're interested in, and he'll get back to you within 15 minutes in business hours with a quote. It's that simple. It's right to the bottom line. No hassle, no haggle. You get your quote. You can let it be a starting point for you moving forward, a baseline for you moving forward, or you can do what I've done and what a lot of people have done who have listened to this podcast over the years, and that's get into a Ford product. You'll love it. You'll love your vehicle. You'll love the service you get. You'll love the way that they treat you at Clark Ford. Corey wants to be your truck guy. He wants to be your car guy. He'll show you what that means. That very first call, 662-257-1900.
So, Neil, I guess kind of start here. What we actually know for sure right now versus what we're hearing a lot. It seems like it's one of these deals, and it's happened. It's kind of scrambled a little bit. So, just we'll talk through this. We'll kind of figure it out, but these things never really go in straight lines. There's always things that do have to be held close to the vest because it's an investigation. It's all those things. But the part that I think struck me the most is that as of 8:23 a.m., we're recording right now. And again, we'll see. We'll talk to Therese in a minute. We'll see what's going on. But at this point, there's been even no say to, hey, the public is safe. And we have our theories. We have our things that we think. We know the things that we've heard. But that's the biggest part of this that is bothering me to this point, other than obviously a co-ed kill, don't get me wrong. But from a moving forward standpoint, there's been no any type of inclination of telling people to be on the lookout, to be whether they're in harm's way, not in harm's way. And those are the things where when you have a vacuum of information, something's going to fill it. And what has filled it is rumor and speculation and, frankly, terror for a lot of students, for a lot of different things. And that's the part that I'm most concerned with as we get into Tuesday morning.
Yeah, here's the deal. Saturday morning, the news broke that an Ole Miss, was she a junior, senior? A senior at Ole Miss.
I think she was a rising senior.
From suburban St. Louis, was found dead in Harmontown by, according to the law enforcement, on a routine patrol. That was the end of any updates. It was it. That's abnormal. That is not typically what happens. And this has become more national news than it's become local news. The Today Show dedicated 2 minutes and 43 seconds to this story this morning. There is no local newspaper. There used to be. There's not one anymore. They appear to be taking the press release that's given to them from the sheriff's department and running it. We'll talk about journalism a lot today because it's on my mind.
Yeah, the next update with any substance whatsoever was reported at 7:14 p.m. last night, and that was Therese, who had the two bits of information that were most relevant, which is authorities close to the case. I'm quoting her. Say she went that Ally went home around midnight, but at some point left the house again. Her roommates didn't hear her leave, and on Saturday morning, the sheriff's department says one of the deputies is on again routine whatever.
There's video of her. There's video of her walking up to the bar, up to the door of a bar. She does not appear to go in, and then she goes back to what I assume to be her house or her apartment in Oxford, and she leaves. Her roommate or roommates, I don't know whether there's one or two or four or whatever, did not hear her leave.
And her body was found in per Therese, and last night shot 8 times.
Yes, which is the number that I heard Sunday.
Yeah.
I think I told you that.
Yeah.
My daughter Caroline had heard from one of her friends that Ally Kostial had been shot 8 times.
The MBI, the Bureau of ATF is involved, all those things at this point.
There are strong rumors today that a suspect was arrested yesterday. I've been told by people who have been pretty dialed in on this that a suspect was arrested yesterday. I have heard his name. I have heard where he is from. I have looked at his social media. I'm not saying his name because obviously he was tweeting over the course of the weekend.
Oh, really?
Yes. Tweeting a day ago, 2 days ago. So, in my opinion, and I've had people push back on this, and that's okay. You're allowed your opinion. I don't think it is serving the community for people to wonder, is there a killer at large? Was this an isolated incident? Do you have a suspect? Have you made an arrest? Is there a person of are you surveilling anyone? Is there a threat to the public? I think those are legitimate questions. I know for a fact, and you do too, that Ole Miss probably has been, I know for a fact. I don't know for a fact. I know for a fact that a lot of people are very concerned. People are worried. People don't know, what does this mean? This comes on the heels of a pretty big story in Oxford that has just suddenly just gone away, which is a woman was allegedly murdered by an Oxford Police Department employee, an officer. Yeah. Officers have resigned. There's all sorts of rumors about that story that are like, oh, my God, crazy. And so this happens on the heels of that, and people have questions. And it's my opinion, as someone who's in journalism, and I cut my journalism teeth covering police and courts and stuff. I mean, I cannot imagine walking back into Steve Bell or John Stade's office at the Birmingham Post-Herald with, hey, I've got a press release here from the sheriff's department. I mean, after they killed me and fired me, they would have sent me back with, don't come back until you have something. Okay, so this is going to sound sort of choppy, but I finished the thought. It was about 30-some-odd minutes ago. We stopped to interview Therese Apel. And
we'll get to that in a minute.
So I'm going to come back, and I can't remember precisely what it was that I was saying 32 minutes ago.
Neil was ranting about something, but he's not exactly sure what it was he was ranting about. So
because we just had a fascinating interview with Therese.
Again, we'll get to it in a minute.
That you'll get to in a minute. You'll enjoy, and you'll be glad that we got her on, and she is really, really sharp, and it's a lot of stuff, and I think you'll enjoy it. If you're waiting for a sports podcast today is not your day. We'll come back. Sports will happen again, and we'll come back with sports at some point. But today, Chase and I talked about this a lot yesterday. I drove 9 hours from Chicago yesterday, and there's only so much Major League Baseball trade deadline talk that you can listen to. And I kept waiting for news. There's got to be news. I drove you crazy. I drove some other people crazy. Is there anything? Because I try not to drive checking Twitter. It's not a real great example to set for your 12-year-old son in the back. And this was on my mind about where is local journalism, and I'm guilty of this. I don't subscribe to the Eagle. I used to work at the Eagle. I cut my teeth at the Eagle. I love that. There's a soft spot for the Eagle. I met my wife at the Eagle. I did a lot of local journalism. I'm not making this about me. It's not about me. But before I was ready to cover a beat, before I was ready to cover the Auburn beat for the Birmingham Post-Herald and then subsequently the Mobile Register, I had to cover other stuff. I worked at weeklies. I did stuff. My introduction to the Birmingham Post-Herald was as a stringer covering high school sports. And it was, hey, go out and do a season preview on Mountain Brook High School football. Go do a season preview on Pelham volleyball. I was like, what? Yeah, Pelham volleyball. And there was no, hey, here's who the coach and here's the number. It was just go do it. Because they wanted to see, can you report? And I probably wrote a whole lot of really crappy stories from thinking about it. I don't know. I remember talking to Joey Jones. He was the coach at Mountain Brook, and I did a story about their quarterback and stuff. And I talked to some kids, and I put stories together on stuff that I didn't know anything about. And then the Birmingham Post-Herald had a job open covering courts and crime and stuff. And it was, hey, be here at 4 a.m. You'll go home at 2. Give you a lunch break. And we got to put stuff in the first edition. So have a 7:30, a 6:30 or 7 o'clock deadline, and then another deadline later in the morning. It was old school newspapers. And if I'm honest, the job was miserable, man. It was miserable. I'd get to Friday at 2 o'clock, and I was like, oh, thank God. And then, Monday morning, I realized I had to get up and go. But you learned how to report, and I don't think that's taught anymore. It's young people, and I'm not old man yelling in the lawn. I'm pro young people, but there doesn't appear to be anybody who's at any of these local papers, because frankly there's no money in them anymore, to say, hey, go get this story. Go get it. I'm going to help you, but go get it.
We've lost mentors.
It's gone.
Yeah, that's the overwhelming thing here is we've lost mentors.
There's nobody at the Eagle pushing people to go get the story.
Well, I mean, it ties into what we're talking about here. And again, this is not journalism for the conversation for the sake of journalism conversation. This is journalism conversation for the sake of public safety awareness, for the sake of the community.
Yes.
This is not about journalism.
Yes.
It is, but it isn't.
And I'm not picking on just the Oxford Eagle, but it's everywhere.
My point here, that's where I'm making a point. We're going to talk to Therese Apel in a second. Therese and I have known each other to some extent for more than a decade, and she's very, very good. She's a great reporter. She's working for a TV station. This isn't a shot at TV stations. She would be a fantastic mentor for journalists at newspapers or media outlets that would be writing, and she doesn't do that. She left the Clarion Ledger in 2018, and that's kind of my point. She would be the perfect person to help that next generation learn a lot of what we're talking about, and instead she's doing great work, but she doesn't have that stable of people under her where she affects people moving forward.
Well, and I question who makes business decisions at some of these papers. And I've worked for Boone. I think Boone owns the Oxford Eagle. I've worked for Boone.
That's correct.
I know how that deal works. But the Oxford Eagle, and I'm not picking on this is going to piss some people off, and forgive me, I really don't care. It's the great part about really not caring whether people like me or not. Why the hell are you covering SEC Media Days? Why the hell are you spending money to go cover SEC Media Days? It's pointless. No one's reading the Oxford Eagle for Ole Miss football. I mean, let's be serious here. If you're reading for Ole Miss football, you're either subscribing to us and or the Ole Miss Spirit. You can get stuff on Twitter, but no one's getting the Oxford Eagle to read about Ole Miss football. No one's getting the Oxford Eagle to read about Vanderbilt football, South Carolina football. They're just not. That stuff's everywhere. You subscribe to The Athletic. You subscribe to us. You subscribe to The Spirit. You subscribe to whoever. Local journalism is, if I'm running the Eagle today, we're covering nothing but this story. We're on that police story. We're digging on it. And yeah, is it going to piss off people there? Yeah, sure. Who cares? That's part of your job. You're respectful. You'll hear her in the interview. You're respectful to the people you cover, but you're not beholden to them. I get this question all the time. You and I get this all the time about, do y'all worry about access? Nope. Not even a little bit. Never crosses my mind. Well, if you don't have access, you can't cover the program, want to bet? Yeah, sure, I can cover the program without access. Frankly, probably make me a better reporter. Probably make the product better.
Oh, it's the old thing of you feed the dog, he gets happy with what gets fed. You stop feeding him, and he goes and finds food. It's a whole different deal.
Yeah. Best work I've done on this beat was at the end of Houston Nuts time. I had no access.
Didn't Houston clean out his office in between weeks, in between the LSU and the state game, or whatever it was?
Yeah, it was
like that Thursday. We always did those things like in the little hallway to the Manning Center. I want to say like there was just boxes everywhere.
Yeah,
everybody was already moving out. The season wasn't over.
Yeah. Mississippi State minus the number was one of the safest bets in the history of time. If I just had, I'm not saying I'm Mr. Ethical, but if I had no ethics at all, I would have been like, hey, what's our mortgage balance? Because I'm betting that.
There are weeks where at least the team you cover, positively or negatively, you go in and go, lock.
Yeah.
I've seen them all week. I know how this one's going.
I knew that was, and I'll tell you the other time that I knew Louisiana Tech plus whatever that week was free money.
Was it plus?
It might have been minus, but it was free money.
You weren't even there.
No, but I was there that week.
Yeah. You missed the bear putting the box on his head.
Oh, God, which was actually one of the funnier moments for the Bears.
That was the Bears' best moment, I think, of his tenure.
But I worry about it. I worry about local journalism, and I would subscribe to the Eagle if they covered stuff. And maybe that's the deal, is a community has to start rallying around papers again because there's no one to cover city councils. There's no one to cover board of supervisors. There's no one to really ask questions, to dig. There's no one to
look. People are being affected every single day. Are going to be affected by this parking garage thing that they haven't even. They're trying to set prices on right now, and there's no coverage. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, and so there's no way to know.
Yeah,
and so people are ignorant, and ignorance is not good. And this story, in my opinion, is going to break today.
Probably today.
Today, tomorrow, and as it does, it's going to be.
Frankly, by the time we get it up,
it's going to be explosive, I think.
Yeah. By the time it all fleshes out, because I do believe what we're hearing.
I will say this before we go to Therese.
Yeah.
If I'm Ole Miss, I've got to make sure today, because I told you this yesterday. I've got a daughter. Everybody knows she's going off to school in 3 weeks. And God, it's hard to believe it's that soon, man. 3 weeks, she's going off to school. And if this had happened in Fayetteville, I'm asking questions before I'm sending my daughter up there. And I'm not Mr. Overprotective. You know that.
No, you're not a helicopter.
And so I don't know, but I would bet a significant amount of money that the switchboard at Ole Miss was lit up yesterday.
Yeah.
People had questions. And if you're Ole Miss, you gotta be able to address this a little as, hey, this you gotta come up with, gotta work on message today. Because it's not the best look in the world. And that's not the university's fault. I'm not blaming the university. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm not blaming Oxford. I'm not blaming the sheriff's department. I'm not blaming anything. But there are questions that people are going to have, and you're going to have some answers.
Yeah. Let's go to Therese in 1 minute. You'll get that. First, tell you about Community Mortgage, Oxford, Memphis, Soto County, and Chattanooga. Underwriting and processing is done in Memphis. They're getting local underwriting that understands your market, a leader in condo financing, the float-down option, and rates are lower than they've been in about 2 years. So if you purchased or maybe refinanced during that period, maybe time to talk to Jason and see if he could help you out. Again, his phone number, 662-234-2704. You can also find him at JLOWE at communitymtg.com.
If you and your friends have been telling yourself that you need to get some Blue Delta jeans, but you can't get to Oxford until next month for football season, like September for football season, the team at Blue Delta Jeans has a solution for you. Give them a call or an email, and they'll come to you no matter where you are. Organize where you are. Goodness. Organize a group of friends and family together, and Blue Delta Jeans will come to your home. They'll throw a house pop-up party. You can be the host with the most, and Blue Delta can be the life of your party. I've been to these parties. Chase has too. They're a lot of fun. They're cool. Their product is really neat. Their summer line is out. Frankly, it's nothing but temptation on a daily basis. It will be for you as well. info at bluedeltajeans.com, or you can send them a direct message on social media, Twitter, Instagram. They're at Blue Delta Jeans. Warm weather is most certainly here, and with it comes the debate of sock or no sock with your loafers. So save your feet and your shoes from making their own impression and step into summer with some no-shows from Dead Soxy. You really need to experience the difference a quality sock makes. Go to deadsoxy.com. Enter the code Rebel Grove at checkout. You get 30% off all orders, including sale items. These no-shows with the same quality you already love and enjoy with their traditional dress sock, and they come with the no-slip guarantee. Deadsoxy.com, promo code Rebel Grove at checkout for 30% off all orders. Don't miss 1 minute of the action at Vaught Hemingway this season as Ole Miss football arrives in September. Reserve your season tickets with the new 2019 season ticket pricing for just $299. For more information, visit OleMissTix.com. That's OleMissTix.com. Podcast also brought to you by Pinnacle Trust. Pinnacle Trust based in Madison, Mississippi. They've got clients in more than 20 states. What they do is they provide detailed, specialized investment management, financial planning, retirement planning for individuals and businesses, and much more. At Pinnacle Trust, investing is treated like a commodity. Decisions are made using objective information and research, not emotions. So regardless of your level of wealth, Pinnacle Trust will sit down with you, listen to your goals, study your expenses, and put forth a comprehensive, detailed financial and retirement plan. Cookie-cutter financial planners don't do that. Pinnacle Trust does. They build a plan just for you. To learn more about Pinnacle Trust, go to pintrust.com. That's PINN trust.com. Mention you heard about Pinnacle Trust on the podcast. You'll get 10% off your first year's fee.
Now here's Therese Apel on the Oxford Exxon podcast.
Yes, that's Therese. Thanks for joining us today. I know you got another busy day of reporting in front of you, and frankly, I'm thrilled you're doing it because I could go on a diatribe and probably will at some point about the death of local journalism, but it's good to know that you're on the story. You had a story, I guess, last night about Ally Kostial's murder. I know that it probably did not have as much detail in it as you were hoping for. That's why you're working on it again today. I guess let's start with this. Tell us what you can tell us about what you know regarding what happened, and then we'll kind of dive into some stuff about process and where you think it goes from here.
Sure. Well, what I understand is that the last time she was seen, and today I'm trying to work a little bit more on this, so I'm not going to tell you exactly everything I have on it, but the last time she was seen was on the square Friday night. My understanding is that police believe she went home around midnight and that she then went back out. Probably to meet somebody. The next time I have anything documented, of course, is when the deputy on patrol found her out by Beaufort's Ridge. Now, a lot of people have questioned whether or not a deputy would actually just be routinely patrolling and see her there, and I'm not sure exactly the spot where her body was. But when I went out there yesterday, I noticed that it really is just like a fishing camp. I heard from locals it's a make-out spot. It's a place where people go to ride ATVs. It is somewhere that I believe they would be running routine patrol, probably regularly. So that's where she was found. The question, of course, becomes from there, who did she meet? Who was she with? How did she get out there? What were they doing? That kind of thing. And that's what I'm able to talk about on the record. There's a whole lot, of course, that's still underneath the surface that I'm hoping will come out today.
Okay, I'll take you through some things that I hear, and you tell me whether that's even a path that you're going down. Is there anything that can be ruled out? There are a lot of people that immediately there's a fear that launches through because of the young woman in Columbia, South Carolina, who got into the wrong Uber, if you will, and she was murdered. And so immediately there was a lot of concern about, hey, is it safe for me to get in an Uber in Oxford? Was it an Uber driver? There's a lot of people talking about Uber. To your knowledge, was an Uber involved in this at all?
To my knowledge, no, because the first time I've heard anything about an Uber is from you. So
okay.
I don't think that was something that ever came into play, to my knowledge.
So there's also some speculation that, and obviously you haven't been able to confirm this. I'm curious if you've heard it, that she was spotted out at a convenience store with a boy, a young man, whatever, about 3 miles from where her body was found at some point, either late Friday or early Saturday morning. Have you heard that as well?
I have heard that rumor, and I was actually going to check in with that convenience store today. But that was something that I've definitely heard.
And then, obviously, you're not going to give a name, and I'm not either, but I'm just from a confirmation standpoint. You're hearing the same thing we have, that there's a suspect at least in custody?
I am hearing that, and that is, as makes perfect sense, I guess. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm on the road now to Oxford, and I'm going to be checking into that when I get there.
Okay, so let's talk process, because you're a fantastic reporter.
Sure.
You have a great reputation, and I know people are interested with how does this go. So take us, if you don't mind, because I think people are fascinated by it. Take us from the first time Therese Apel hears about this to where you are today. What is the process in working sources, in getting to a place where you've gotten? Because I know, frankly, I'm not going to put these words in your mouth. These are my words. The Lafayette County Sheriff's Department does not have a reputation of being all that amicable and with the media. They don't have a great reputation for sharing information, for revealing information. And so here we are 72 hours or so since, or maybe more than that, since this young woman's body was found, and there's been no information from the Sheriff's Department. So how do you get the information that you've gotten?
Well, and to kind of start with, when I really kind of, I guess my radar tuned in to this story, because since we're located in, central Mississippi, it's kind of outside our viewing area, obviously, but my first thought was everybody's interested when a college student goes missing or is murdered. So I kind of read a little bit more about it, and all I could find was that you've got a girl who was found dead. We don't know how. We don't really know where. We know it's deep in a wooded area. We don't know who she was with. We don't know if this is going to be a situation like a couple of years ago when a girl was kidnapped and then turned out to be okay. We don't know. There was so much that was unknown, and especially with kind of knowledge that comes with, 15 years of reporting, and most of that being crime reporting. I thought there's a lot more to this story. Why are we not hearing more about it? Because you end up with the Harmontown community wondering what the heck's going on. You've got every co-ed at Ole Miss wondering if they're going to get snatched, and taken somewhere or killed or, all kinds of things. So I thought this is something that needs to be addressed. I do have a strong network of sources in North Mississippi that I don't get to use as often as I used to, but on Sunday night, I started calling around to some of my people and saying, all right, I need to confirm this story is worth traveling for. I mean, it's like, what are we looking at? And at that point, I did get some details, but I also just, there were a couple of folks that said, I can't tell you anything about it, but I can tell you that, you might want to keep tabs on it. From that point, I talked to my bosses and we agreed that it sounded like it could be an interesting story. So when I got to Oxford yesterday morning, I had already contacted some folks, but I started to work my sources, just contact them. Hey, what do you know about this? If I say X, once I started to get enough of it, if I say X, Y, Z, is this accurate? And, then I would let them say, okay, yes, it is, or no, it's not. So the way I decide when it's okay to go with a fax, because a lot of people hate unnamed sources. Honestly, I would rather never have to use them as well. But when you have, as you said, the Lafayette County Sheriff's Department is very tight-lipped, more so than most anywhere that I've worked. There's a few other places that are maybe as tight-lipped, and they all fall in a category for me of places that when I first hear they're working a case, I know I'm going to have to work around them. And so in that case, you just go from source to source to source and say, are you working this case? What do you know about it? Can you tell me? And first you tell them everything's off the record, until we go on the record. And then, that's where you come in and say, all right, so I've heard this from 2 other law enforcement officers. Are you hearing this? Is this accurate? Or have you got firsthand knowledge of this or that kind of thing? basically what it does is it gives you a system of fail-safes because I know who my sources are. I can tell my bosses who my sources are, and they're all close to the investigation. So as much as I would rather never have to do that, I think what a lot of people understand is when a reporter calls you, that's your opportunity to tell the story in your words. If you don't talk to them, then what happens is everybody else tells your story for you. And unfortunately, fortunately, that's what happened yesterday, because I didn't want to have to sit there and think that, okay, I can gather this information and put these people's minds at ease, but I'm going to not do that. To me, it was about, you don't have a serial killer among you. You don't have a situation where somebody else is next, hopefully, potentially if someone's in custody, then we know nobody else is next, that kind of thing.
Do you have a theory for why, in this particular case, the lead investigation unit, which is obviously the sheriff's department, why they're being so tight-lipped? Why would they not, at some point, if what I'm told is true, and I think you're obviously much more dialed into this than I am, so you're hearing the same thing, if they had a suspect in custody as early as yesterday afternoon, normally in a situation like that, and you cover more crime than, I used to, but it's been 2 decades.
Sure.
Normally when an arrest is made, even if someone is brought into custody and maybe he or she is not formally charged, but they're detained, that usually that information is put out by the law enforcement agency for the reasons that you just stated, so that, hey, people know that there's not a killer on the loose. You don't have to be terrified to call Uber, for example. You don't have
right.
to have to lock yourself up in your room. You don't have to worry about, for example, obviously we live in a college town. There are a lot of 20 to 22-year-old blonde-headed young women walking around. If you're one of those women, you don't have to worry about being profiled right now. It's okay. Why did they not, in your opinion, why have they not put out any information at all?
Well, my opinion is, in my experience with Lafayette County, I've had cases where I had information that would, you may recall the guy that got in a fight with cops at the stadium a few years ago. I had information that if you compared his booking photo to the photo that was being circulated of him all beat up, that you would find he wasn't beat up in that altercation with the police. He was actually beat up once he got in jail. So I called the sheriff and I explained to him what I had and said, can you guys just release me his booking photo, which is public record. And he said no, and it took a while. And then at some point, I had mentioned to another reporter from Memphis that I was trying to get that. She was somebody that I trusted. And all of a sudden, Memphis is putting out his mugshot, and it's 2 to 3 weeks after I asked for it. And I think there's just there is a distrust of the media over there for the most part. But also it's just, I think, the old school mentality that says, we're not going to share our information with anybody. And different places have different reasons for that. It's not terribly uncommon, but you do find it a lot more, I've seen it a good bit in North Mississippi. In, the rest of the state, it's in patches, but when you get toward the more urban areas, usually is where they're more up on, the way the media works these days, and that you can't just say no comment, because what that means is that a hard-working reporter is going to find a way to get the story. You'd rather tell your story because that fills in a source that otherwise I'm going to have to go somewhere else and get, because today's news cycle doesn't wait for you to hold a mugshot 2 to 3 weeks,
Yeah, today's news cycle doesn't wait on much of anything. It turns pretty quickly. If this story, and maybe this isn't a fair question, and if it isn't, I apologize. If this story goes where you think it's going as of this moment, is this national news?
That's a good question. I think because it has been made national news already, then yes, people will want to hear the resolution. If it goes the way I think it's going to go, it's something that we see a lot and I wish we didn't. It's, I can't say much more than that.
No, I know you can't.
I do feel like it's something that maybe didn't have to be this big, but when you hold back all your details, all your information, we've got a dead girl, we're not telling you how she died, we're not telling you any of the circumstances surrounding it, and you're in a community full of girls the same age, the same type,
Sure.
When you do that, it draws attention. And especially, there's I think they call it the Lacey Peterson effect. When you've got a beautiful girl, then everybody's looking, everybody's talking about it, that kind of thing. And especially, we're inundated in society with these shows like Criminal Minds and CSI and all that. So everybody's watching things and they're formulating these theories in their head. I mean, you talk to your friends and everybody's got a different theory, but a lot of them come from those shows that we watch. Ooh, is it a serial killer? Is it, XYZ? And to me, that's why it's national news in a large part, is because if an agency is fairly forthcoming, yeah, it probably would have pinged the radar nationally. But the secrecy surrounding it is one thing that really propelled it to the top, I think.
Yeah, all the mystery and stuff. It makes it easy for the Today Show to dedicate basically 3 minutes of their programming this morning, and the only sourcing they had was your story.
Oh, wow, I didn't see that.
Oh, yeah, I'll send it to you. Yeah. Yeah, they did cite they cited your news organization. They didn't cite your name, but the only reporting that they cited was yours, and then they used some social media stuff with reaction from her friends, and they talked to some people that had that knew her, that knew Ally and stuff like that. But the meat of their story was built around your story.
Okay, gotcha. I'll have to go look that up.
Take a break in our talk with Therese to tell you about Master Cuts Lawn and Landscape. They provide premium lawn care throughout northern Mississippi, but they offer a lot more as well. They'll build your custom playgrounds, retaining walls, pool decks, outdoor living spaces, paver patios, forestry mulching, and much more. The path to your dream backyard easier than you think. You can find them online at gomastercuts.com, or you can get a free quote by giving them a call at 662-607-7773. Again, that's gomastercuts.com.
The podcast also brought to you by the Westin Jackson. It's the sponsor of my mailbag, which will be published at some point tomorrow. You go to the Westin Jackson, visit Soul Spa. It's the ultimate luxury spa experience in downtown Jackson. You can indulge in personalized massages, signature facials, soothing body treatments, and much, much more on their extensive spa list. And you can also gather at Estelle Wine Bar and Bistro, sip on a creative craft cocktail, enjoy their curated wine list. They're open for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Chef Caden's mission is to connect guests with the community through local partnerships, so gather at Estelle tonight. And the podcast is brought to you by John Edwards of Regency Travel Incorporated in Memphis. A lot of you have taken advantage of this and booked some really cool trips. Get in touch with John. You can book your own really cool, memorable, lifetime trip. 901-494-3387, jedwards@regencytravel.net. Give him some parameters. Give him a budget. He's going to give you options that you're not going to find on your own, that's going to make your trip a once-in-a-lifetime, really memorable experience. And no, you don't have to live in or near Memphis to take advantage of his services. First-time clients will save $50 off their first book trip just by telling John you heard about Regency Travel on the podcast. Now back to Therese Apel.
Therese, you tweeted yesterday about department officials essentially lying. How does that sort of change your process with those people once that happens? Because, I mean, that trust is broken. That's sort of over for the rest of the story.
Yeah, well, and I had an interesting conversation late last night with a friend of mine who's in law enforcement up here about that. But basically, I had some good information. I went to an official with it, and he told me it was a complete fabrication, that people are making things up. Don't listen to that rumor. And it was the detail that she had been shot 8 times and left by I think what I had was she was left in the lake. And as I understand it, maybe she was found by the lake, but maybe not in the lake. But anyway, he's telling me complete fabrication. This is crazy, blah, blah. And long story short, I found out that, no, that's not crazy. That is what happened. And this person on their own thought that they were going to tell me that, and I was going to go away. And I was thinking, I've worked with them multiple times through the years. I've always really thought of them as somebody that, I'll call him. You know, I'll get what's really going on. I'll call him in a certain area. And all of a sudden, when I find out that what he said to me was not, and it would have been so much easier if he would have just said, Therese, I can't tell you that right now. Okay, well, just let me know when you can, or I'll try you back tomorrow, you know. Instead, going off on all this stuff, and then I had to talk to him about something else. I asked where Buford's Ridge was, or I said, can you tell me where her body was found? And he started to lecture me about, you know, police procedure. And after you've been doing this 15 years, like, I get it. Just say right now we're not releasing the location. But anyway, make a long story short, what that does is, unfortunately, now if I have to call him for anything, I can't take his word for 100%. And as a reporter, that's very important to me. And I realize a lot of people out there hate reporters, and they'll give you reasons that, you know, it's okay to lie to us and stuff. But for somebody like me, my integrity is the only thing I have as a reporter, because in today's world, everybody likes cockroaches better than us.
Yeah.
You know, you want to be the one that kind of stands above a little bit with, you know, I'll give you the honest truth. Tell me, hold off, and you give me a good reason. And that, I really did just Twitter like that. But it was just one of these situations like, it's putting the answer in your hands. If you're going to come back at me with a lie, well, you know, at this point, I didn't put his name in the story as lying to me, but I could have.
Yeah,
you know, and that, you know, I could have said so-and-so disputed that fact, but 5 other sources confirmed it, you know.
It's the advice that, if you're a PR consultant, the advice that you give to any entity is that you always do 2 things. One of 2 things. You either tell the truth or you no comment. No comments frustrate reporters, but a reporter can't come back and say, hey, you lied to me. No, you just didn't tell me.
Well, and the secret is, instead of saying no comment, just say, you know, today I'm not able to give you an answer on that, but I would love to be able to keep you in the loop if you'll check back with me tomorrow. Something like that. And you can even say, you know, the standard line. At this time, we're not able to release that information, but we can tell you this is an ongoing investigation. We're working our hardest to get to the bottom of it, and we certainly want to give answers to this community. Something along those lines to where now I have a quote I can use. Now I go home happy. It's like feeding somebody fast food. It's not nourishing, but it does the job at the moment. And that's kind of, you know, when I go speak to groups of cops, that's what I preach, is just be friendly. Just treat somebody like it's your neighbor, like it's your friend. If you can't tell them something, that's okay. If you don't know, that's okay, you know. But it's still kind of, I guess, a thing that's not, for some of the old school cops, it's very foreign, I think.
Just kind of curious here. You do this every single day. How do you sort of decompress or not let it get you down at times? I mean, what are sort of the secrets just for your mental space to be able to continue to do this every day, this aggressive, without it sort of, frankly, making you kind of depressed?
Well, it's a couple of things. It's about, you know, and there are people who would scoff at this answer, but it's about fairness to law enforcement. It's about fairness to the community. It's about, you know, really what your calling is. And if your calling, like the Old Testament prophets, is to speak the truth to those in power or to the, you know, the populace, that's what your job is. Now, if I'm going to use the Old Testament prophets, I should also say there's lots of false prophets. But I've always kind of looked at it in that way, that like when there's truth to be told and you can find it and it betters a situation. I mean, there's truth that's out there that probably would not do anybody any good, so there's no point in digging that up. But to me, knowing that what I'm doing serves the greater good is what's important to me. And also just, I think also, if we're getting to the bottom of it, like, yeah, I like putting these things together. I like finding the pieces and, you know, and really kind of the feedback that I get from other people, watching their minds work and seeing how the world's connected is also very interesting. But yeah, there are days that emotionally it does take a toll. And I've had cases, some that are worse than others. But I think really for me, I can't just have a job. I have to have a calling. And as we've seen, I branched out into public affairs a couple times and never could stick with it because I always felt like what I do now is very much important to the world. You know, not necessarily me doing it, but the job itself is important to the world.
Yeah, and reporting is addictive too a little bit. I mean, digging for a story is it's a high. I mean, I remember those days. I mean, you would go. I would come home. When I was working at the Birmingham Post-Herald, for example, and there was this fugitive manhunt that was going on, and I couldn't leave it at work. I ended up working on it at home, which led to the FBI knocking on my door. But I couldn't stop, and so I don't know. I think there's a certain if you're kind of a, and I mean this in the nicest possible sense, when you're kind of a bulldog of a reporter, it's just sort of hard to stop being that. That's kind of your DNA.
I always say old cops and old reporters never quit; they just fade away. And I think that's the truth. There's something to digging that stuff up and finding the truth. And I think for me, I can't talk about reporting without talking about the truth. And I feel like that does get lost in today's world a lot. But for me, it is so much about everything in this world to me is, and there are gray areas, but they still fall on one side or the other. It's all about, you know, right versus wrong. And that's why I love being a crime reporter because, you know, sometimes what people think is right may be wrong or what they think is wrong may be right. But that's your job to dig that up and let them sort it out for themselves, you know. And that said, I really do. I think that it's who you are. It's like there are dogs that hunt, there are people that hunt, and in different ways. But I think that's what we do as reporters. And yeah, there is an adrenaline addiction that comes with it. I'm quite certain because when I have a couple of slow days, I start to get antsy, you know. But it's not for me. It's not about putting it out first. I mean, everybody likes to do that. But I don't want to put it out first if I don't know that what I have is right. You know, I would rather take the time it takes to get to the bottom of what the truth is before I go anywhere with it. Because to me, I would rather be a little slow than be a little wrong.
Yeah, I had an old colleague of mine, Ray Mellick, who's no longer in the business, but he said there's nothing quite as good as being first and right, but there's absolutely nothing worse than being first and wrong.
Absolutely. And I think that's happened to all of us at some time or another, which while it's an ideal up until that point, after that it is, you know, absolutely a way of life because you've learned it with a big old sledgehammer.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So after that, you want to be careful. I mean, if you're any kind of I'm sure there are people that don't let it faze them, but for me, that was, you know, I've had a story or two back in the day that I didn't have all the details correct and, you know, just messed it up. And after that, no way.
Yeah. I got one wrong in Birmingham, and that meeting with editors was the absolute worst. And I can say it's never happened since. I'll get beat. If I don't have it, I'm just not going there. That meeting was and I'm my own boss now, so that meeting wouldn't even happen, but that meeting was horrible. Oh, God, it was bad. It was all I could do. I was probably 25, 26 years old. It was all I could do not to be in tears in that meeting and let those people see me cry. But I was on the cusp of it. It was awful.
Yeah, well, and one of the things, I worked in high school for a man named Jim Lambert, who was the editor of the Copiah County Courier. And I worked there from the time I was 15, and I wrote local news and sports. So I remember one time he would tell me things that I didn't understand the impact because I was so young and I was in such a small market. We were the only media. So it's like he would sit and tell me things that were bigger than the world I was in. And I didn't always understand them until later. But one thing he always said is, if you don't get it first, get it right and do it better. And that's been what kind of my aim has been throughout my life is sure you'd like to get it first. But if somebody else breaks it and it just breaks your heart that you didn't get to put it out, guess what? Do a better story, and everybody's still going to come to you instead.
Do you worry about the state of local journalism?
I do very much. Because, I remember when I first went to the Brookhaven Daily Leader, we had 2 to 3 reporters. I think we had phased out photographers at that point. But when I learned that there had been a time that they had 4 or 5 reporters and 2 photographers and this whole thing, I started wondering, this is 2007. I started wondering, why are they doing that? And then you watch the state of affairs, you watch the downsizing of, small local media outlets, but also big ones, and you kind of see how this whole thing is falling together, and you realize that sometimes maybe it's about things that journalists don't see, I don't agree with it, but there are things that as a journalist, I'm thinking of facts and, the truth and integrity and all these, ideals, when sometimes it's really about the bottom line. And, that's how people have to keep their businesses open now, because the internet has kind of crippled everybody as far as journalism goes. While it's given us wings, it's also kind of holding us down. You can get information anywhere and you can get it to say what you want it to say. So people can go to any blog they want to and, tell their own story because I saw it in this thing online, so it's true. And I think to me that's the hardest part of watching what's happening to local news, especially because I always used to get frustrated sometimes when national news would come in for a day or two and report a story and then turn around and leave. Well, the people that they talked to or that they reported on, they didn't owe them anything. They weren't going to run into them in the grocery store. They weren't going to, have a kid on the same Little League team. So they could be very much more, very much less careful with the lives they affect. And one reason I always tell college kids that, start somewhere small, go somewhere where you understand what your impact on your community is first. So that way when you move up, you're not sitting there, hurting people without realizing what you're doing because you've seen it up close. You've had to look that person in the face, at the movie theater after you wrote a story about how they're embezzling, things like that. There's just important pieces that you get in the local markets, and if they die out, then journalism changes completely.
Yeah, it's something that I think about a lot. It bothers me. I listen to some of I'm sure you do too. I like a lot of podcasts, and I listen to a lot of LA Times or whoever that does podcasts, and I think all of these podcasts, they're entertaining, but they're done because there are reporters that do the work. What happens when there aren't any reporters anymore? And maybe we won't get to that place. I don't know, but I'm thankful that you've been working the story, and I know you've got a busy day ahead of you, and you gave us probably a lot more time than you intended to. So thanks a whole lot, and we look forward to kind of following your reporting on this.
Well, I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you. And, I'll definitely be out there today, so hopefully we'll turn over some more information.
Safe travels. Talk to you soon.
Thanks to Therese for joining us on today's show. We'll get back to the podcast in 1 second. First, tell you about G&M Pharmacy there on South Lamar in Oxford, 662-236-2222. Let them take care of all your medications and prescriptions as they come about. They offer MedSync, which makes sure they fill them at the same day every month. Makes it easy on you. One trip to the pharmacy and you are done, and also delivered to your home or workplace if you so wish there with G&M. And if you need some prescriptions but you can't get over there, you can do it online as well. You can just go to gnmpharmacy.com, you can go to tysondrugs.com, click product request, and they will take care of it right there online. Again, 662-236-2222.
Podcast also brought to you by Grenada Nissan. If you're in the market for a Nissan vehicle, Grenada Nissan's the place to go. They've got a complete selection of new and previously owned Nissan vehicles. Go in, test drive one today. Tell Gene and Sandy that you heard about Grenada Nissan on the podcast, and you'll get Rebel savings on top of the already great deals at Grenada Nissan. It's GrenadaNissanUSA.com. We're also sponsored by Harry Alexander. Harry is an Oxford-based RE/MAX Legacy Realty agent. He's a big part of Savannah Square. It's a new 9-acre development, 0.7 of a mile from the Oxford downtown square, conveniently located east of North Lamar, just a short stroll from the Midtown Shopping Center which houses, snack bar and BBB and all that. Savannah Square will initially consist of 32 standalone detached structures ranging in size from about 1,100 square feet to about 2,400 square feet. The model home is available for your inspection at 215 William Street. These homes have wonderful layouts, impeccable finishes. You can see them all at the model. So get in touch with Harry. Give him a call at 662-801-5621 or go to the site savannahsquareoxford.com. The Oxford Park Commission currently registering for youth flag football and the fall baseball season. Leagues are open for ages 6 to 12 in football and 6 to 15 in baseball. The cost to sign up for football is $50. It's just $40 for fall baseball. Each sport will be played at beautiful FNC Park. For more details, visit oxfordparkcommission.com. And we're brought to you by Oxford University Bank. OUB, locally owned and operated right here in Oxford. When you deposit money at OUB, that money and the vast majority of the bank's profits go right back into the Oxford community. OUB gives you the comfort of home, all the benefits the big mega banks provide, all the technology and products you can want, all with the personal touch. When you call OUB, you speak directly with a live person. There's no 10 buttons to push. There's no 5 minutes to wait. What there is Kasasa. It's the absolute best cash checking account. With Kasasa, OUB will pay customers 2.5% interest on their balances up to $50,000 and refund ATM fees nationwide. OUB also offers online bill pay and mobile check deposit using its online app. To learn more, go to liveoxfordbankoxford.com or call 662-234-6668. OUB is FDIC insured.
So, as we were doing that part of the show, it is coming out this morning. It's kind of one of those things where you're doing the show and breaking news happens. It is what it is. We cannot be as vague now as we were during the interview. And then prior to, there has been an arrest made, this per the Oxford Eagle, a charge of murder by the Lafayette County Sheriff's Department for Brandon Thiesfeld, a 22-year-old, was booked at 3:45 p.m. Monday and is being held at the Lafayette County Detention Center. That jives with what we had been hearing. So an arrest has been made. Appears that it was very much a person who knew Ally. And
he's a student from Fort Worth, Texas.
Correct, yes.
The Eagle is saying that the Lafayette County Sheriff's Department nor the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation is verifying that he's being charged in connection with Kostial's death, but let's get real.
Yeah.
He's clearly being held and charged in connection to Kostial's death.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of talk about him being a boyfriend. It's my understanding that he is a friend who is a boy, that there was not a active romantic relationship. Look, a lot's going to happen here. I think we're going to get a lot of insight into sort of how relationships work with young people. I creeped to social media all morning. Just, I don't know. I got a lot. It's one of those deals. I got a lot I want to say. There's a lot I want to process. There's a certain rumor that's out there that, quite frankly, can only be confirmed at this point through an autopsy. I assume that those autopsy results at some point will come back, and this will
be true or not true.
It will be a fact or a non-fact, and if it's a fact, then obviously it likely goes towards motive.
Yeah, just it's why I asked Therese the question about how do you kind of cope, because I mean I'm somebody who's not even covered it at all, just kind of following it, and I'm sort of bogged down today. Now I'm not conditioned for it. I don't deal with it every single day, but you know I was you mentioned looking through social media. I looked through Ally's social media, and a tweet that she retweeted from May 11th of 2019 showed that she had concern to some extent for her safety. It was 2 months ago, and that's one of the things that's just kind of heartbreaking for me right now is that. Look, you're never guilty of signs or anything else, and it's not somebody else's fault that something wasn't found necessarily, but it appears that she had been struggling with something along these lines for a while to some extent. So, I don't know. Just sucks.
Well,
Really.
I hear a lot of girls talk about this, that they can't go anywhere without guys creeping them. I can't relate to that from either perspective. Obviously, I can go anywhere I want to go and don't have to worry about being creeped. No one's hitting on me at the gym. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't have to sweat that. That's not. I will say I worked out at the gym in Birmingham when I was there, and a guy kind of creeped me.
Really?
Yeah, which was not good. I mean, if I'm gonna get creeped, I'd much rather get creeped by a female. It'd make me feel a little bit better about myself. But anyway,
it might have made you, like, from a self-esteem standpoint. Frankly, I mean, might have been all right for you.
Kind of creeped me out.
Really?
Yeah, it was. I mean, not there's anything wrong with that. All good. Whatever. But yeah, it's just not. I wouldn't.
Today's not the day, but I might need a story on the show tomorrow.
Yeah, today's not.
Today's not the day.
It's as. I mean, I'm trying not to make it about me. We all make things about ourselves. I'm the father to two girls who, quite frankly, look a lot like that. Not quite as old, but they're there. I mean, I've got Arkansas plays their first football game August the 31st in Fayetteville. I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that weekend there will be parties. There will be alcohol. There will be boys. There will be all those things. How do you know your kid's safe? How do you know your kid's safe? And those are questions that, like I said, Ole Miss is getting those questions today. Is it fair?
A person's in custody. A student is in custody.
Yeah.
What does that do for the PR from a university, from a town perspective, that it is I don't want to be cliche, but it was somebody who knew her?
It helps. Certainly helps. Yesterday there had to be moms and dads calling and saying, how do you know there's not a killer on the loose? My daughter looks like that girl. Fair fears.
Mm-hmm.
It's my point yesterday when I said it's irresponsible to not put out something. And I still maintain it was irresponsible on the part of the Lafayette County Sheriff's Department to put out nothing yesterday, especially when someone was booked into custody at 3:45.
3:45.
I mean, come on. Don't give me the old school stuff. Don't be a collection of rednecks. Have some sense, man. Have a little common sense about the community in which you live.
Oh, our message board was proof of it. You had parents going, hey, my daughter's at school and she's scared.
Yeah, of course. So, yes, this will calm people down.
Yes.
This can happen anywhere.
Yeah. And it does.
And it does. Crazy. I mean, I think it's safe to say, based on the way I think in our country, it's almost safe to say we have something bordering on a domestic violence epidemic. Again, there's going to be a lot that comes out, I would assume, and then because look, she's working this story. National people are going to work this story. This is he appears to come from money. There will be probably be some pretty high-profile attorneys involved in this. And this will be a case of, how do you say it, prurient interest. This is the car wreck that you can't avoid looking at. So there's going to be a lot of questions that people are going to have, and it's going to be, I suspect, a pretty public deal, and this is going to be a trial that, when it comes around, and that is going to have a lot of interest because it hits all of the chords. It checks all of the boxes.
Yeah, producers will dramatize the hell out of it.
I keep waiting for the reporting where the people go and talk to the family, where the people go and talk to her roommates, where the people go and talk to her friends and ask what was going on. When you saw her, what was her state of mind? When you were with her on Friday night, what was her state of mind? Had there been a development in her life that was critical? Had something happened? Did she act funny? Was she upset? I keep waiting for that reporting to come out. Almost to the point where, frankly, and it's not my place because it's not what I do, it's all I can do not to do it. There's a lot there that I want to hear, and it'll all come out because, let's face it,
it just will.
If he's not guilty, he's going to fight this tooth and nail, and if he is guilty, obviously they're going to do everything they can to make this not first-degree murder.
Mm-hmm.
If he is guilty, and I will give everyone the benefit of innocent until proven guilty, because that's just an American thing. If he is guilty, his social media of the last couple of days is among the most appalling things I've ever seen in my life.
I haven't looked.
It makes me wonder if you're just dealing with an absolute sociopath.
A little bit of housekeeping on the show again. A lot of discussion about this at rebelgrove.com. It's July 23rd. As long as everybody's keeping everything fairly simple, come discuss, hang out. It's all anybody wants to talk about. It's all that, frankly, we should be talking about right now. So there's that. Also on the board and on Twitter, I posted a GoFundMe account that a buddy had sent to me for one of our subscribers who passed away this week, Reynolds Boykin. Comes from a really good family, leaves behind a wife and a 2-year-old daughter. If anybody knows Reynolds or if you just want to help out, I've linked that on the board and on Twitter. And then something that has no consequence anywhere close to what we're talking about. There's a new episode of Bourbon South up this morning. Steve Thomason and I talked to Wes Taylor. He's a wine rep. He's taken a sommelier training. We talked about palate, how to help your own palate. We talked about kind of the similarities between wine and bourbon from a tasting standpoint. And he's a dusty bottle collector. He likes finding really old bottles, likes opening them up, trying them out. We tested several. We had an Eagle Rare from the mid-2000s. We had a Weller from like 1997, 1998. And then there was a Charter 101 from probably 20 years ago or something like that too. So you can find that in this feed, also on the site at rebelgrove.com. And all the places you listen to the podcast, but just a little heads up there.
Take care of a little, paying a couple of bills here. And we'll say this. We do this a lot. This podcast is a success for 2 reasons. 1, because of you guys who listen. That's the big one. And then 2, because of the people who support it, the businesses who support it. We've got a couple of potential opportunities as football season gets near. If you're interested in advertising with us, obviously, football season is a great time to do it. There's a couple of content items that potentially need sponsors that are very successful content items on our part. So if you're interested in that, get in touch with me, with Chase, whatever, at our emails, or if you have our numbers, give us a call, and we'll go from there. I want to thank a couple of sponsors here real quick. Thanks to Scooper's Pet Waste Removal. Everyone loves their pets. No one loves stepping in their pet stuff. No one loves tracking that stuff back into your house. That's a nightmare. Scoopers can help that nightmare go away. They'll go into your backyard, your apartment complex, your condominium, and they'll pick up what no one really wants to pick up. For $10 a cleaning, Scoopers will come clean up your yard. They'll do it on your schedule, weekly, bi-weekly, one-time service, whatever. They're flexible. No contracts are required. You can cancel at any time. If you have multiple dogs, it's just $2 for each additional dog. So if you own a home, a condo, or an apartment complex in Oxford and you'd like to deal with a lot less crap, call Scoopers, 662-506-2754, or email them scoopers.oxfordpetwaste@gmail.com. And on a much lighter note, football season will be here before you know it, and people will be tailgating and all of that stuff. And if you're going to be tailgating in the Grove and the Circle on the Ole Miss campus, you want to be tailgating with 7 South Tailgating. It's owned and operated by husband-wife duo Kyle and Jordan Thornton. They're both Ole Miss alums, Oxford locals. And what started as a way to pay for college has become the greatest tailgating service provider at Ole Miss. The team at 7 South are Rebels through and through. They take pride in the Grove, the impact the service has on protecting, preserving, and enriching the Ole Miss game day tailgating tradition. So give them a call, 662-321-1682, or visit 7southtailgating.com.
So, again, many thanks to Therese Apel today, and then to you guys for listening to me back tomorrow. We'll talk about something. I don't know. We'll figure that out as we go, but appreciate you hanging in today, and we'll talk to you then.